right? Ian,
Yeah.
it seems like every 5-6 months we get a video game item, a retro video game item that appears on our favorite show, Pawn Stars.
Pawn Stars.
You know, I think there was an NWC cart or two back on it in the day.
It might have been.
It was like wow, was it like almost, was it a year? Not a year ago, 8-9 months ago with the sealed Super Mario Brothers that appeared.
How long ago?
I think it was a while, but it was like 6-7 months ago.
Oh yeah, thereabouts.
It was last year, and now there's Virtual Boy's been on it. There's been Game and Watch on it, things like that. Commodore 64 computer. Now though, this is interesting for a larger conversation. There was an Odyssey 200 in the box. So Ian, the Odyssey, you know, but for the audience, so obviously the Magnavox Odyssey came out in '72. It was the first video game system, home console available. Coming the 50th anniversary in 2 years. After that happened, there was a variety of smaller Odyssey standalone Pong console clones. They came out before Pong, which whatever, the generic Pong, even though Pong was a generic Odyssey anyway. So
the Odyssey boogie boards.
Yes, there was the 100, the 200, the 300. There was several of these all throughout the 70s.
Yellow, orange.
There were several ones from Atari that came out before the Atari VCS. There were several ones from Coleco that came out. There was all the off-brand ones that I owned. Some of them, I think I sold a bunch at SoCal last year. There was probably, I'm not even exaggerating, throughout the U.S. and regional, 40 to 50 of these things probably. Some came with the guns that looked like real pistols. Some did not. Some had paddles you can separate. Some did not.
Yeah, some of them just had the dials right on the board.
Like the original Odyssey ones, the first few ones had the dials on the board, and it was cute because, like it shows in this video, it has not even scoring on screen still. It has a little clicker that you move for yourself. That's adorable to me. We're still in like half board game, half video game mode in the early 70s. So this older fellow brought in his Odyssey 200. This man's probably, I want to say, mid-50s. So when he bought this or got this, he was like probably, or maybe he's like 60. So he's probably like 18, 20 years old when he got this in the mid-70s. When he got this Odyssey 200, I believe he said it was like 74, 75. So the Pong standalone came out about 75, I believe, for home by Atari. So he talked about, we played it back in the day. It was a big deal to have this. You invite your friends over, you have a beer, you play some Pong on the TV. And thinking about it, it must have been back then. It must have been a real sort of cool novelty to do that. Yeah. This is a new form of technology. Mm-hmm. This isn't a board game or playing cards. We are interacting with the TV in an electronic form.
I always found that early era interesting because they really did lean on like, this is like board games but with electricity, because there were so many of those games like where one player wasn't even an option. You still needed someone to play the game with you.
Sure. I mean, think about it. I always go back to that original game show that was like the first time you saw the Magnavox Odyssey anywhere, and like the people, the celebrities. First of all, they couldn't guess what the people were doing. Right. With the controllers. Then they can barely wrap their mind around the concept. Yeah. They were like, what? It's like, oh, okay. Like they didn't know what they were looking at. Yeah. And that's less than 50 years ago. It would almost be like people that grew up in the early 1900s survive long enough to get to the TVs in people's houses. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, then again, you had movies before the TV, so it was just a smaller version of that. But you see what I mean. It's like, wow, moving pictures. Mm-hmm. And the Nickelodeon. Anyway, so he brings it in. It's still in pretty good shape, this Odyssey 200, surprisingly. And America's most exciting home video game, all new, Odyssey 200. So I have a 200 in the garage, and I believe 100, and I have whatever the orange one was, maybe the 300 or 400 or whatever. So he asked Ian, he wants, what did he want for this thing? He wanted $350 for it.
No, they're not worth that.
I wonder if he was confusing this with the original Magnavox Odyssey, because it's interesting. Almost all of the standalone Pong clones from the 70s, I guess they've still made them up to maybe the early 80s. Almost all of them don't go for much of anything. Maybe some of the weird Coleco ones do, like that Coleco one. The TriStar one has the gun in the one and the steering wheel
on the other,
because it's like interesting, and it actually has replaceable like little cartridges to change the game. But for the most part, they're not worth anything because there's so many of them, and they don't all offer the same thing. But the original Magnavox Odyssey is a collector's item for
yes,
still to this day.
Yeah,
And it's actually gone up in value.
Yeah, the original Odyssey has gone up in value, not down. And because there was a period of time where people didn't necessarily care too much, but it has gone up in value, especially if you have everything with it.
Yes,
especially the
poker
overlays.
chips, the cards, the overlays, the dice. It's basically like a board game interaction thing.
Yep.
The fake money.
Was there fake money in there too?
I'm trying to think. There's so many things. Like when you look at all the things you need, it's like, wow, either you kept it all or you lost it all. Like it was tough. I have it in the box. I don't know if I have I also know for some reason some people like to go like there's like two or three different revisions. Have that first revision versus the next one, but it's tough to find everything. I also have a dealer's case. I believe it's dealer cases. I don't think they would have sold it. That has everything still brand new, all the pieces. It's in a white case. You open it up and it's nice.
Oh,
so I'm not getting rid of stuff like that because that to me is a part of game history. Like that to me is like this is like an item.
The original Odyssey's cool looking too.
It's a big box. It looks cool. You know.
Yeah.
I don't have the rifle. I remember I told you one time I bought the rifle and they didn't wrap the box. They actually put that brown packing tape, that awful.
Oh yeah. I was so
I remember fucking pissed. Yeah. It's one of the few times I got angry with an eBay seller.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he offers $350 to Rick's son. I forget his name. And he said he actually said, "Oh, what do you mean $3.50?" He countered with $25. And that's actually what they kind of go for. The most you probably get. I'm looking on if you look at the sold prices on eBay. You're not going to do that much better than $25. And who is going to want the Odyssey 200? That's a thing. Like, why would you want that when you can get the Odyssey 100 or go for the original Magnavox Odyssey? Or unless you just want one standalone Pong
right.
clone. Do you get people in the store that say, I want a Pong clone ever? Is it rare?
I have people who... They think they want one.
They think they want one?
They think they want one because it would be neat. But, the few times we've gotten... We don't really sell those, but there's been a couple times where we've gotten them in really, really nice shape, and people will come in and be like, "We got a Pong." They're like, "Yeah, no, yeah." I mean,
honestly,
when push comes to shove, no, most people don't want one.
You get the coaxial adapter to put it in the back of a TV so you can still play it in a fuzzy way. Okay. The other problem is like he has this one didn't come with an AC adapter. Most of these Pong consoles didn't come with the AC adapter. You either buy it separately.
Right.
That's how they got you. Like my dad, we had the Coleco Telstar Ranger, which had a fucking revolver that a cop would shoot you if you pulled it on him, and we replaced the C or D probably the giant D batteries probably like 3 times within 2 weeks. Before he said, okay, that's it. I'm getting you had to mail away. They usually came with a little card or something, or to mail away. You cut out of their instruction to mail away to get the AC adapter. So, because these things 8 batteries. I'm talking like 4 hours, 6 hours. Like that, you'd be lucky. You're done.
Right.
And back then, I don't know how much batteries cost back then versus now. They probably weren't cheap to get like the D's back then anyway, or C's. So I just thought it was interesting. So he offered 25, and Doug, I love you, Doug. I love you, but he says, well, I guess I'll hold out for the future, because it suggested maybe this go up in value in the future. Doug, my friend, this ain't going up in the future, my friend.
Yeah, the standalones aren't.
This maxed out in value probably like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, probably, or maybe even the 90s when the 2600 fervor was at its peak, mid to late 90s. Take the $25, Doug, and go to buffet with your wife. Go to a Bellagio buffet. Well, that'll pay for one of you. I just think it's interesting because you see like the more casual outside perspective when this stuff comes on the show, at least to some degree, about what people think this is worth, and it's like, man,
that's how we ended up with the ones that we had. I had like at one point I think we had 3 of the Odyssey ones in the back. I think we had 2 of the 300s. We might have had a 100, a 200, and a 300.
In the box or loose or?
Just loose. And it was people bringing them in and thinking they're worth something. And we're like, they're not. And they're like, well, we don't want to take it home.
It's like, do you think people are playing this when they're playing, PS2 and 3 and GameCube? Like, who's nostalgic for this anymore?
You have to be real hardcore nostalgic to want to play that.
That's like the nostalgia.
Atari, I get. Nintendo, sure. But ColecoVision, fine.
It's like a line in Not For Resale where one of the shop owners said, a kid comes in and says, "Oh, I'm going to buy this game. I'm real nostalgic for it," and the kid wasn't alive when the game.
Yeah.
And the shop owner goes, "I don't think you know what that word means."
Yeah.
Nostalgia. You have to have been alive to feel nostalgic for that item. So I guess if some 65-year-old comes in and says, "Yeah, I had that in my mid-20s," and wants to buy one, but how rare would that be? You know.
I just don't think anyone's going back to get that experience. Like I said, there's an amusement to be had re-experiencing, say, like an Atari game.
Because even Frank remembers going and playing
even a standalone Pong set. But I remember my dad telling me that he would play the Odyssey. Like he played the Odyssey, and it wasn't fun.
Yeah, because like I said, even
it wasn't a good time.
Like Frank played Pong in the 70s. Like he played this stuff at bars, whatever. But it wasn't that fun that you want to remember and play it 30 years later.
Right.
It maybe to them was still like it's a board game.
Stepping stone.
It's like playing Parcheesi.
Yeah. No, boy, I love Parcheesi. Yeah.
Like you can't get nostalgic for something unless it's a certain level of fun.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Which is why like the Atari VCS and we'll say pre-NES stuff, that's why it's really died down, because the games are fun, but they're not fun enough 40 years later I want to play them for most people. That's why the brands died and Nintendo still carried on there. All right, that's all I want to say about this. Go check out the clip. Poor Doug. Hey, Doug, maybe I'll buy it from you. Just to, I feel bad because you're going to be dead before it goes up in value. Like it's not going to go up in value unless the aliens invade us and knock out everything, all technology. We only have Pongs left to play.